There's a children's cartoon that somehow managed to teach an entire generation lessons about grief, identity, and what it means to grow up that most adults still haven't figured out. I'm talking about Gravity Falls, and if you think this is just another nostalgia trip about a show with quirky characters and mysteries, you're missing the entire point. What Alex Hirsch created wasn't just entertainment. It was a masterclass in using fantasy and horror to explore the most painful parts of being human. Let me show you what I mean. When Dipper Pines arrives in Gravity Falls for the summer, he's 12 years old and desperate to prove he's mature, intelligent, worthy of respect. Sound familiar? That's because Dipper represents something we've all experienced. That specific torture of being trapped between childhood and adulthood, knowing you're capable of more, but being constantly reminded of your limitations. The show could have made this a simple coming-of-age story. Instead, it did something far more interesting. Dipper finds a journal in the woods. Not just any journal, but a guide to the supernatural creatures and phenomena plaguing this small Oregon town. And here's where the show reveals its first major lesson. Knowledge doesn't equal power, and seeking answers can sometimes create more problems than it solves. Dipper becomes obsessed with this journal, using it as proof that he's special, that he's different from other kids his age. He's not just some 12-year-old. He's someone who understands the mysteries of the universe, except he doesn't. Not really. The journal gives him information, sure, but it doesn't give him wisdom. It doesn't teach him how to handle what he discovers. Throughout the series, we watch Dipper make increasingly desperate decisions because he's convinced that knowing more secrets will somehow make him matter more. He lies to his sister. He puts his family in danger. He makes deals with demons, literally because he's so focused on proving his intelligence and maturity that he can't see how immature his obsession actually is. Now contrast this with Mabel, his twin sister. Where Dipper seeks validation through knowledge and mystery solving, Mabel lives entirely in the present moment. She's silly, optimistic, and completely comfortable being exactly who she is. The show sets them up as opposites, and most viewers initially see Mabel as the less serious character, the comic relief to Dipper's protagonist role. That's the trick, though. Mabel's approach to life looks childish on the surface. She's obsessed with boys, crafts, and her pet pig. She breaks into song randomly and seems to take nothing seriously. But watch what happens when real problems emerge. When the people she loves are threatened, Mabel doesn't freeze up trying to find the right answer in some book. She acts. She trusts her instincts. She values relationships over being right. And critically, she forgives people, including herself, in ways that Dipper struggles with throughout the entire series. The show is teaching us something profound here about different types of intelligence and different ways of moving through the world. Dipper represents our cultural obsession with being smart, with having answers, with proving ourselves through achievement and knowledge. Mabel represents emotional intelligence, presence, and the courage to be vulnerable. Neither approach is perfect. The show doesn't pick a winner. Instead, it spends 2 seasons demonstrating how both twins need each other, how both approaches have value, and how insisting on only one path leads to disaster. Let's talk about that disaster. Weirdmageddon, the apocalyptic finale of the series, doesn't happen because of some external villain making unpredictable moves. It happens because Dipper and Mabel both make understandable human mistakes driven by their core fears. Mabel, terrified of growing up and losing her childhood, makes a deal that literally tears apart reality. Dipper, so focused on his own journey and validation, fails to notice his sister's pain until it's too late. This is where Gravity Falls transcends typical children's programming. The apocalypse in this show isn't caused by evil for evil's sake. It's caused by 2 kids who love each other but fail to communicate, fail to see beyond their own needs, fail to recognize that their individual fears are interconnected. Bill Cipher, the demon who manipulates them both, isn't just a villain. He's a manifestation of what happens when we let our fears and obsessions consume us. When we're so desperate to escape discomfort that we'll burn down the world rather than face what scares us. And what scares Dipper and Mabel more than anything? The same thing that terrifies most of us. Change. Specifically, the kind of change we can't control. They're 12 years old, about to turn 13, standing at the edge of adolescence. Their childhood is ending whether they like it or not. The summer in Gravity Falls is their last gasp of pure adventure before real life, with all its complications and compromises, comes crashing in. The show doesn't shy away from how painful this is. In fact, it leans into it. There's an episode where Dipper gets a glimpse of his potential future, sees himself as a slightly older teenager, and becomes obsessed with accelerating his growth. He wants to skip ahead, to be taken seriously now, to bypass all the awkward in-between stages. The episode ends with him learning, of course, that you can't rush growth, that trying to skip steps only leaves you unprepared for what comes next. But here's what makes this lesson actually stick. The show doesn't just tell us this through Dipper's failure. It shows us through Grunkle Stan, the kid's great uncle who's been lying to everyone, including himself, for decades. Stan represents what happens when you never address your childhood wounds, when you let your fears and regrets calcify into your entire personality. He's a con man, a liar, someone who's built his whole life around running from the past. The reveal of Stan's true motivation, his decades-long search for his lost brother, reframes everything. Suddenly, this goofy, selfish old man becomes tragic. He's been 12 years old this entire time, emotionally speaking, frozen at the moment when his brother disappeared and he blamed himself. He never grew up, he just got older, building elaborate defenses against ever having to feel the pain again. Stanford Pines, Stan's brother and the author of the journals, represents the opposite trap. Where Stan ran from knowledge and responsibility, Ford dove so deep into both that he lost himself completely. He became so obsessed with understanding the mysteries of Gravity Falls that he stopped seeing the people around him as people. They became variables in his research, obstacles or tools depending on their usefulness. His intelligence became a prison, and his pride nearly destroyed the world. The relationship between these brothers mirrors Dipper and Mabel's dynamic, but shows us the stakes if those patterns continue into adulthood. Stan and Ford spent 30 years apart because neither could admit they were wrong. Neither could see past their own pain to recognize the other's perspective. They were both brilliant in their own ways, both deeply flawed, and both completely incapable of the one thing that might have saved them: honest communication. This is the lesson Gravity Falls keeps hammering home through different angles and different characters. Growth isn't about becoming smarter or tougher or more independent. Growth is about learning to be honest, especially when honesty makes you vulnerable. It's about recognizing that the people you love are just as scared and confused as you are, even when they hide it differently. It's about accepting that you can't control everything, that some pain is inevitable, and that running from discomfort only ensures you'll face it later under worse circumstances. Consider Wendy, the cool older teenager Dipper has a crush on for most of the series. She seems to have everything figured out. She's confident, laid back, completely comfortable in her own skin. Dipper idolizes her, sees her as the epitome of the maturity he's desperate to achieve. Then we get episodes that show us Wendy's home life, her relationship with her father, and suddenly she's just as lost as everyone else. She's performing confidence because that's easier than admitting she's scared. She's avoiding her own feelings by staying perpetually casual about everything. The show treats this revelation with remarkable gentleness. It doesn't tear down Wendy to make Dipper feel better about himself. Instead, it uses her complexity to teach both Dipper and the audience that everyone is fighting battles we can't see, that the personas people present aren't the full story, and that genuine connection requires looking past the surface to recognize shared humanity. Suze, the handyman at the Mystery Shack, embodies another crucial lesson about arrested development and healing. He's an adult who never quite grew up, still living with his grandmother, still processing childhood abandonment through jokes and avoidance. In most shows, Suze would be pure comic relief, the lovable man-child who exists to make us laugh. Gravity Falls gives him one of the most emotionally devastating episodes of the series, where he has to confront his absent father and the wound that's been defining his entire life. What happens in that episode? Suze doesn't get the apology he deserves. His father doesn't show up and make everything right. Instead, Suze has to choose whether to keep waiting for external validation or to accept that some wounds don't heal cleanly, that some people won't give us what we need, and that we have to find ways to move forward anyway. The episode ends with Suze finding father figures in Stan and the other people who've actually been present in his life, not replacing his bio dad, but recognizing that family is about who shows up, not who shares your DNA. This refusal to provide easy answers is what makes Gravity Falls actually useful as a guide to life. The show understands that real growth is messy, that healing isn't linear, and that the lessons we need to learn often have to be learned multiple times in different contexts before they actually stick. Dipper doesn't solve his insecurity in one episode and move on. He struggles with it constantly, makes progress, backslides, makes different mistakes based on the same core fear. The journal itself becomes a symbol for this struggle. At first, it's Dipper's security blanket, proof that he's special. Then it becomes a burden, something he's obligated to protect and understand. Eventually, he has to destroy it, has to let go of the very thing that gave him identity and purpose, because holding on to it means putting everyone at risk. That moment, when Dipper chooses his sister over his ego, over his need to be the smart one who saves the day, is the real culmination of his character arc. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we can fully understand how Gravity Falls uses its supernatural elements to explore human psychology, we need to look at how the show structures mystery itself as a metaphor for the search for meaning. The journals aren't just plot devices. They represent humanity's desperate need to impose order on chaos, to find patterns that prove we're not just stumbling through existence randomly. Think about how the show reveals its mysteries. Information comes in fragments, contradictions, and pieces that don't fit together until you step back and see the larger pattern. Sound like anything else? That's exactly how we experience life. We get moments, interactions, and experiences that seem disconnected until suddenly, sometimes years later, we understand how they all connected to shape who we became. The way Gravity Falls handles this process of discovery teaches us something crucial about patience and perspective. Mystery in Gravity Falls works differently than in most shows. Usually a mystery exists to be solved, and once you have the answer, the mystery is over. Sherlock Holmes figures out who did it, explains how, and we move on to the next case. But Gravity Falls understands that the most important mysteries aren't the ones with clear solutions. They're the ones that change what questions you're asking. Take the author of the journals. For the first season and a half, that's the central mystery. Who wrote these books? Why did they document Gravity Falls' weirdness? What happened to them? The show could have revealed this early and moved on, but it doesn't. Because the mystery itself is doing work beyond just creating suspense. It's teaching Dipper and the audience how to sit with uncertainty, how to keep investigating even when answers don't come quickly, how to distinguish between what you can know and what you have to accept as unknowable. When we finally learn the author's identity, it doesn't simplify anything, it complicates everything. The author is Ford, Stan's twin brother, and their relationship contains decades of resentment, betrayal, and unresolved trauma. The answer to one mystery opens up 10 more questions about family, about choices, about how two people can start from the same place and end up so differently. This is how life actually works. You spend years wondering why your parent acted certain ways, and then you learn about their childhood. Instead of getting a clean answer, you get a messier picture that requires more empathy and nuance than you were prepared for. Gravity Falls gets this. It understands that maturity isn't about having all the answers. It's about developing the capacity to hold questions without needing immediate resolution. The supernatural elements function the same way. On the surface, they're fun and weird. Gnomes that try to kidnap Mabel, a time-traveling tape measure, a shapeshifter that can become anyone. But each supernatural threat is actually a psychological threat disguised as a monster. The shapeshifter represents the fear of losing your identity, of not knowing who you can trust, including yourself. The time travel episodes force characters to confront the consequences of their choices and the impossibility of perfect outcomes. Even the gnomes in the first episode are about Mabel's tendency to rush into relationships without considering red flags, literally ignoring warning signs, because she's so focused on the fantasy of romance. This isn't heavy-handed symbolism. The show doesn't stop and explain what each creature represents. It just consistently uses the weird to illuminate the real, trusting that the emotional truth will land, even if viewers don't consciously process the metaphor. That's sophisticated storytelling. It works on kids as exciting monster adventures and on adults as psychological exploration, without talking down to either audience. Bill Cipher deserves special attention here because he's possibly the most effective villain in modern animation, and not because he's the most powerful or the scariest. He's effective because he represents something genuinely dangerous in a way that connects to real human vulnerability. Bill is the voice that tells you rules don't matter, that you're special enough to bypass consequences, that power and knowledge are worth any cost. He's the rationalization, the shortcut, the easy answer that seems brilliant until you're trapped in the deal you made. Every character who makes a deal with Bill thinks they're smart enough to control the situation. Ford thought he could use Bill to unlock the secrets of the universe. Mabel thought she could create a perfect bubble reality to escape pain. Dipper nearly gave Bill the laptop code because Bill convinced him he was saving everyone. Bill doesn't succeed through force. He succeeds by telling people what they want to hear, by exploiting the specific vulnerability each character has already demonstrated throughout the series. Watch how Bill operates. He's charming, funny, seemingly helpful. He offers exactly what each person thinks they need, whether that's knowledge, power, or escape from emotional pain. The horror isn't that he's a demon from another dimension. The horror is that he's the personification of self-destructive impulses we all have. The voice that says you deserve to take shortcuts, that the ends justify the means, that you're entitled to what you want regardless of cost. The show's treatment of Bill culminates in something really interesting. He's not defeated through superior power. The heroes don't become stronger than him or find a magic weapon that cancels his abilities. Bill is defeated through sacrifice and through accepting limitations. Stan has to let Ford erase his memory, has to give up his identity and his past, to trap Bill in his mind so Ford can destroy him. It's a solution that costs everything, that requires Stan to trust his brother after decades of betrayal, that demands acceptance of loss rather than fighting for victory. That's the opposite of how these stories usually go. Usually the hero discovers hidden strength or a secret weakness in the villain. Here, the solution is accepting profound personal loss as the price of protecting others. Stan doesn't want to lose his memory, he's terrified of it. The memory gun has been established as his worst fear. But he does it anyway because some things matter more than preserving yourself intact. And here's what makes it devastating. The show doesn't undo this sacrifice. Stan gets his memory back, but only slowly, incompletely. He doesn't just reboot and return to normal. The experience changes him permanently. He's lost pieces of his past that he'll never fully recover. The show lets that loss stand because it understands that meaningful choices have permanent consequences, that you can't always go back to who you were before. This connects to a broader pattern in how Gravity Falls handles consequences. Actions matter. Choices stick. When Dipper clones himself to avoid disappointing people, those clones don't just disappear cleanly. They have feelings, desires, and the right to exist. He's created beings that suffer because of his selfishness, and he has to deal with that. When Mabel accidentally gives Bill physical form by trusting the wrong person, she has to live with that guilt. The show doesn't let her off the hook just because her intentions were good. Even smaller choices accumulate weight. Dipper's obsession with the author leads him to neglect his sister repeatedly. Each individual instance seems justified, but they build into a pattern that nearly destroys their relationship. The show tracks this carefully, showing how Mabel feels increasingly dismissed and unimportant, how she starts doubting whether Dipper actually wants to spend time with her or just tolerates her presence. By the time we reach Weirdmageddon, when Mabel makes the choice to trust Bill and create her fantasy bubble, we understand exactly why she's vulnerable to that offer. We've watched Dipper prioritize mysteries over her all summer. This is sophisticated character work. The show plants seeds early and harvests them later, trusting the audience to remember and connect patterns. When Stan's lies finally catch up to him, when the portal activates and Ford returns, we've had an entire season of watching Stan maintain his deception, seeing the stress it causes him, understanding why he feels he has no choice. The revelation lands with weight, because we've been watching the foundation crack for episodes. The portal itself functions as another perfect metaphor. Stan has been running this portal for 30 years, trying to bring his brother back, convinced that fixing this one mistake will redeem his entire failed life. He's poured everything into it, his money, his time, his integrity. He's lied to everyone, broken laws, endangered the town, all for this single goal. And when it finally works, when Ford comes back, Ford is angry. He doesn't thank Stan for the rescue. He punches him and demands to know why Stan couldn't just leave well enough alone. This is brutal because it's real. How many people sacrifice everything for a relationship or a goal, convinced that achieving it will make everything worthwhile, only to discover that success doesn't erase the costs? Stan gets what he wanted and finds out it doesn't fix what's broken between them. The portal can bring Ford back physically, but it can't undo 30 years of resentment and separate lives. That requires different work entirely, the kind of painful, emotional honesty both brothers have been avoiding since childhood. Their relationship is the emotional foundation the entire show is built on. Everything else, all the mysteries and monsters and adventures, ultimately serves to illuminate what went wrong between these brothers and whether it can be repaired. Stan represents the person who screwed up, who made mistakes, who never lived up to his potential. Ford represents the golden child who succeeded, who was special, who still managed to destroy his life through arrogance and isolation. Neither one has the moral high ground. They're both responsible for the breach between them. What makes their arc work is that the show doesn't pick sides. Stan's resentment is justified. He was neglected by his father, had his dreams destroyed by one accident, and has lived in poverty while Ford achieved everything. But Ford's anger is also justified. Stan sabotaged his future out of jealousy and insecurity, then brought him back against his will after Ford had specifically warned him not to. They're both right about what the other did wrong. That's what makes reconciliation so difficult and so necessary. The show lets them be angry at each other for a long time. They don't hug it out after one conversation. They snipe and argue and bring up decades of grievances. Ford is cold and dismissive. Stan is defensive and hostile. Slowly, painfully, they start to remember why they were close as kids, what they meant to each other before everything went wrong. But even that nostalgia is complicated because their childhood was the beginning of the problem. When their father started treating them differently, when Ford's intelligence became more valuable than Stan's loyalty. Watching them rebuild trust happens in fragments. Ford starts including Stan in his plans. Stan stops deflecting with jokes when things get serious. They work together against Bill, not perfectly, not without friction, but with growing recognition that they're stronger together than apart. The show earns their reconciliation through accumulated small moments rather than one big dramatic scene. By the time Stan sacrifices his memory to save everyone, it means everything because we've watched these brothers slowly, incrementally learn to trust each other again. Stan's willingness to let Ford erase his mind, Ford's devastation at having to do it, the way they hold hands as it happens. All of that works because the show has done the work of showing us why this matters, why these specific people making this specific choice is the emotional climax everything has been building toward. And then the show does something even harder. It shows the aftermath. Stan waking up with no memory, confused and frightened. Ford trying to explain who he is, watching his brother look at him like a stranger. Mabel and Dipper working to help Stan remember, using their summer of adventures to rebuild his identity piece by piece. The show doesn't montage past this. It sits with the discomfort, the slow progress, the moments where it seems like Stan might never fully come back. This is where Gravity Falls transcends being just a really good kids show and becomes something more significant. It's willing to let its happy ending be complicated, to acknowledge that solving the main problem doesn't erase all problems, that victory costs something real. Stan gets his memory back mostly, but he's changed. The family survives, but they're different. Summer ends and the kids have to go home, have to leave Gravity Falls and the people they've grown to love, have to return to normal life carrying everything they've learned. That ending, with Dipper and Mabel on the bus, leaving town, looking back at Stan and Ford waving goodbye, is perfect because it's bittersweet. They're not staying. Gravity Falls isn't their permanent home. They're kids who had an incredible summer, and now they have to integrate that experience into their regular lives. The show trusts that what they've learned will stick, that they're different people than when they arrived. But it doesn't pretend that growth means everything is now easy. The final message is about impermanence and acceptance. Nothing lasts forever. Summer ends, people leave, relationships change. You can't stay in the magical place where everything makes sense. But that doesn't make the experience meaningless. It makes it precious precisely because it's temporary. Because you had this time together. Because it changed you in ways that will ripple forward into whatever comes next. Gravity Falls understands something fundamental about storytelling that most shows miss. Mystery isn't just about hiding information. It's about making the audience want that information desperately enough to stay engaged through everything else. The show constructs its central mystery. What happened to Ford, who wrote the journals? What's really going on in this town? With precision that looks effortless but requires meticulous planning. Every episode before Ford's actual appearance plants something. A reference, a clue, a piece of evidence that means nothing on first viewing but clicks in a place once you know the full picture. This isn't accidental breadcrumb storytelling. It's architectural. The show knew where it was going from the beginning and built every element to support that destination. The journals themselves function as the perfect mystery device. They exist in the story as objects the characters can interact with, study, and obsess over. But they also exist for the audience as proof that answers exist, that someone knows what's happening even if our protagonists don't. Every time Dipper opens the journal and finds relevant information, it reinforces that the world has internal logic, that mysteries have solutions, that paying attention matters. The show trains viewers to look closely, to remember details, to connect information across episodes. When the payoff comes, when everything clicks together, it feels earned because the show has done the work of making that payoff possible through careful setup. Consider how the show handles Bill Cipher. He appears in episode 19 of the first season, seemingly as a one-off villain for that specific story. He makes a deal with Gideon, causes problems, gets defeated, seems done. Except the show drops hints that he's more important than he appears, the way he talks about time and space differently than other characters. The symbols associated with him that appear in the background of earlier episodes if you look closely. The fact that the zodiac wheel showing up in the finale has Bill's image at the center, suggesting he's connected to something larger than his initial appearance indicated. The show is playing a long game, introducing its ultimate antagonist casually, letting him seem less threatening than he actually is, building toward a reveal that recontextualizes everything about him. Bill's relationship to Ford, which we eventually learn about, transforms him from random chaos demon to personal nemesis with history and motivation. He's not just evil for evil's sake. He's someone who manipulated Ford's loneliness and ambition, who pretended to be a helpful muse while actually using Ford to build a portal that would let Bill enter the physical world and cause apocalyptic destruction. This backstory makes Bill terrifying in a specific way. He's patient. He's willing to play long games, spanning decades. He's good at finding people's vulnerabilities and exploiting them. Ford's brilliance, which should have protected him, made him a better target because brilliant people often believe they're too smart to be fooled. Bill used Ford's confidence against him, and that's more disturbing than random monster attacks. The show also uses Bill to explore the idea of deals and their consequences. Every time Bill makes a deal with someone, the terms seem reasonable in the moment but contain hidden costs. Gideon gets power but loses control. Dipper gets information but puts everyone in danger. The deals are always structured so that technically Bill isn't lying, but practically he's destroying people through careful interpretation of agreements they didn't fully understand when they made them. This teaches viewers to be suspicious of anything that seems too easy, to look for hidden costs, to understand that getting what you want might come with prices you didn't anticipate. It's a surprisingly sophisticated lesson about reading fine print and understanding that malicious actors can operate within rules while still causing harm. Weirdmageddon, the apocalyptic event that forms the show's final arc, works because it's been foreshadowed from the beginning, but still manages to surprise in its execution. We've seen Bill as trickster, as dealmaker, as manipulator. We haven't seen him as conqueror with full access to physical reality. When he finally gets what he wants, when the portal opens and he enters Gravity Falls with unlimited power, the show doesn't hold back. Reality breaks. Physics stops working. The town transforms into a nightmare landscape where Bill's imagination is the only rule. Buildings rearrange themselves. People turn into grotesque decorations. Time flows wrong. It's genuinely disturbing imagery for a Disney show, pushing right up against the boundaries of what's acceptable for the target audience, while staying just barely on the right side of that line. What makes Weirdmageddon effective isn't just the spectacle, it's how the show uses this catastrophe to test every character's growth. Dipper has spent the series learning to trust others and work with his sister. Now he's separated from Mabel, having to rescue her while resisting the urge to blame her for Bill's escape. Mabel has learned that running from problems doesn't solve them. Now she's trapped in a prison built from her own escapist fantasies, forced to choose between comfortable illusion and difficult reality. Stan and Ford have been rebuilding their relationship. Now they have to work together perfectly, or everyone dies. The apocalypse isn't just a plot event, it's a final exam for every lesson the show has been teaching. The way the show handles Mabel's role in Bill's escape demonstrates its commitment to complexity. Mabel gives Bill the rift, the object he needs to enter the physical world, because she's upset about summer ending, and Dipper considering staying in Gravity Falls with Ford. She's been manipulated by Bill, who appeared to her as Blendon, but she still made the choice. The show doesn't let her completely off the hook. Other characters are angry. Dipper feels betrayed. Mabel has to sit with the consequences of her decision. But the show also doesn't villainize her. She's 12. She was manipulated by a cosmic demon with eons of experience in exploitation. She made a mistake driven by understandable emotions. The show holds space for both accountability and compassion, showing that you can acknowledge someone messed up while still understanding why they messed up and not treating them as irredeemable. Ford's character arc culminates in Weirdmageddon in ways that justify all the buildup to his reveal. He starts the crisis in full hero mode, trying to fix everything himself because he built the portal and feels responsible for Bill's escape. He has plans, backup plans, contingencies. He's going to solve this the way he solves everything, through intelligence and preparation. Except it doesn't work. His plans fail. His weapons are ineffective against Bill's reality-warping power. His knowledge, vast as it is, doesn't include a solution to this problem. For maybe the first time in his life, Ford has encountered something he can't think his way past. This breaks him down in necessary ways, forces him to accept that he needs help, that his family's scrappy improvisation might be more valuable than his scientific precision. The Zodiac represents the show's approach to prophecy and destiny. Throughout the series, we've seen this wheel with 10 symbols, each corresponding to a character. The prophecy suggests that if these 10 people join hands and form the wheel, they can defeat Bill. It's a straightforward chosen one narrative setup. Except when the moment comes, when they're all together and ready to activate the Zodiac, Stan and Ford start arguing. Old resentments surface. They can't let go of their grudge for even 30 seconds. The Zodiac fails not because it was fake, not because they did it wrong, but because these two brothers couldn't stop fighting long enough to save the world. It's a brutal subversion of the destiny trope. The power was real. The solution was available. Human pettiness prevented it from working. This failure forces the plan that actually works. Stan pretending to be Ford so they can trick Bill into entering Stan's mind, then erasing Stan's memory to destroy Bill. It's a plan with permanent consequences, which is rare in children's television. Usually there's a reset, a way to undo the sacrifice. The show commits to the cost. Stan loses himself to save everyone. That's the price. The show sits with that price, doesn't rush past it, shows Ford devastated, shows the family grieving even though Stan's body is still alive, shows what it means to lose someone's mind while their physical form remains. The memory recovery process that follows could have been sentimental and easy. The show makes it difficult and uncertain. Stan doesn't just automatically remember when shown meaningful objects. He's confused, frightened, doesn't understand why these strangers are pushing him. Mabel's scrapbook, which has been a running element throughout the series documenting their summer, becomes the key to bringing him back. Not because it's magical, but because it's comprehensive. She's documented everything, every adventure, every lesson, every moment. The scrapbook is physical proof of who Stan was, what he did, why he mattered. Working through it page by page, Stan starts to remember not because the show needs him to, but because the evidence is overwhelming. The memories return gradually, incompletely, but enough. Enough that he knows who he is. Enough that he recognizes his family. Enough that the person who wakes up is still Stanley Pines, even if he's changed. The show's handling of memory connects to its larger themes about identity and change. We are what we remember. We're shaped by our experiences. When those experiences are erased, are we still ourselves? Stan's memory loss and recovery explores this philosophically through narrative. He retains some base personality traits even without memories. He's still stubborn, still quick with a joke, still drawn to his family even when he doesn't know why. This suggests something essential persists beneath memory, but he's also not fully himself without the experiences that shaped him. The show splits the difference, suggesting that identity is both essential nature and accumulated experience, that you need both to be completely yourself. Gravity Falls also understands how to use absurdity strategically. The show is often genuinely weird, featuring gnomes that combine into a giant, a society of multi-bear creatures that have multiple heads, a time-traveling agent with time manipulation powers, living wax figures, and countless other bizarre elements. This weirdness serves multiple purposes. It makes the town feel genuinely mysterious and unpredictable. It provides comedy through surreal juxtaposition, but it also normalizes the strange, making it easier to slip genuinely dark or complex ideas past viewers' defenses. When a show has already featured a monster made of candy and a goat that eats everything, introducing a chaos demon who can rewrite reality doesn't feel like a tonal shift. The absurdity provides cover for increasingly sophisticated storytelling. The show's approach to government conspiracy and cover-up through the character of Agent Powers in Agent Trigger demonstrates its willingness to include surprisingly cynical elements. These government agents know about Gravity Falls' weirdness. They've been monitoring it. Their response isn't to help or protect people. It's to cover everything up, discredit witnesses, and maintain official denial. When the apocalypse happens, when Bill literally breaks reality, their priority is still containment of information rather than helping people. The show presents government institutions as fundamentally untrustworthy, more concerned with maintaining control than with truth or public welfare. That's a darker view than you'd expect from a Disney property, but the show smuggles it in through comedy and absurdist presentation. Suze represents the show's interest in characters who seem simple but contain depths. He appears initially as comic relief, the handyman who's not particularly bright but enthusiastic and kind. As the series progresses, we learn about his absent father, his grandmother who raised him, his loneliness despite his cheerful exterior, his deep loyalty to the Pines family who've become his real family. The show takes Seuss seriously without losing his essential sweetness. He gets an episode about his father missing his birthday every year, about his hope that this time will be different, about his eventual acceptance that his father isn't coming back and that the family he's chosen matters more than the family that abandoned him. It's genuinely moving character work for someone who could have remained a one-note joke character. Wendy's character demonstrates how the show handles age-appropriate romance and the reality of different life stages. Dipper's crush on Wendy is real and significant to him. Wendy is older, sees him as a friend, isn't available romantically. The show doesn't punish either of them for this mismatch. It doesn't make Wendy cruel for not returning his feelings. It doesn't make Dipper pathetic for having them. It shows him learning to value their friendship for what it is rather than being devastated by what it isn't. By the series' end, they're genuinely friends without romantic tension, and that's presented as a good outcome. Dipper has grown past needing that crush to validate himself. Wendy has a real friend who respects her. The show models healthy acceptance of romantic rejection and the value of platonic relationships. The multi-generational aspect of Gravity Falls' appeal comes from this layering of meaning. Kids watch for mysteries and monsters. Teens watch for character development and emotional arcs. Adults watch for thematic sophistication and visual details packed into backgrounds. The show works on all these levels simultaneously without talking down to any audience segment. It trusts that kids can handle complexity. It trusts that adults can enjoy cartoons. It builds something that rewards whatever level of engagement you bring to it, whether you're casually watching or analyzing every frame for hidden details. The show's treatment of addiction and obsession appears in surprisingly mature ways for a children's program. Grunkle Stan's gambling problem gets addressed directly. When he's banned from the casino, it's not played purely for laughs. The episode shows how compulsion works, how someone can know rationally they should stop but feel unable to control the behavior. When the casino literally transforms people into statues for their debts, it's a metaphor for how addiction can freeze your life, turn you into something less than human, trap you in patterns you can't escape. The show doesn't solve this with a simple moral lesson. Stan's gambling tendencies persist. He's just more aware of them and tries to manage them better. Dipper's obsession with mysteries and solving problems mirrors addictive behavior in different ways. His inability to let things go, his need to figure everything out, his willingness to sacrifice sleep and health and relationships to pursue answers. The show presents this as both his greatest strength and his most dangerous weakness. His drive to solve mysteries saves everyone multiple times. That same drive nearly destroys him when he becomes obsessed with the laptop password or with proving himself to the author. The show understands that personality traits aren't simply good or bad. The qualities that make you capable also make you vulnerable. Mabel's desperate creation of Mabel and during Weird Mageddon demonstrates the show's sophisticated approach to escapism and avoidance. Faced with growing up, with change, with losing the perfect summer, Mabel retreats into a fantasy world where summer never ends and everyone stays exactly as they are. The show could have made this purely villainous behavior. Instead, it treats Mabel with empathy while still showing that her choice is wrong. Bill exploits her very real pain and fear. Her desire to escape is understandable. The fantasy she creates is genuinely appealing. But staying there means abandoning reality, abandoning growth, abandoning the people who need her. The show lets this be complicated. Mabel isn't weak for wanting to escape. She's human, but she's strong for choosing to leave the fantasy and face reality. The author's return and his relationship with Stan provides the emotional foundation for the series ending. These brothers who've been separated for 30 years, who've hurt each other deeply, who've both made terrible mistakes. Ford spent decades alone in other dimensions, becoming harder and more isolated, losing his ability to connect with people. Stan spent decades running a tourist trap and pretending to be someone else, never forgiving himself for the accident that separated them. Their reunion isn't simple reconciliation. They have real grievances. Ford is still angry about his wasted potential. Stan is still angry about being blamed for an accident. They still fall into old patterns, of competition and resentment. What makes their arc work is that the show lets them be fully wrong about each other while also being fully right. Ford is correct that Stan sabotaged his science project and cost him his dream school. Stan is correct that Ford valued his research more than his family. Ford is right that Stan has been reckless and dishonest his whole life. Stan is right that Ford's obsession with being special and important blinded him to what actually mattered. They're both right. They're both wrong. The show doesn't pick sides. It shows how two people can hurt each other while both being victims of circumstances and their own flaws. The final sacrifice, where Stan loses his memory to defeat Bill, brings everything together thematically. Stan, who spent his whole life being seen as the screw-up, the disappointment, the less talented twin, saves everyone through an act of ultimate self-sacrifice. He doesn't just risk his life, he risks his identity, his memories, everything that makes him himself. And he does it knowing his brother will have to watch him forget everything, will have to live with that guilt and loss. It's the most profound demonstration of love the show offers. Not dramatic declarations or grand gestures, but the willingness to erase yourself to protect the people you care about. The memory restoration that follows avoids easy solutions. Stan doesn't simply get his memories back through magic or willpower. The family has to work to help him remember, sharing stories and photos and experiences. Some memories return easily, others stay lost. The show suggests that identity isn't just individual memory but collective story, that who we are exists partly in how others know us and remember us. Stan becomes himself again, not through recovering every memory, but through reconnecting with the people who love him and who can tell him who he's been. Bill Cipher's final defeat works on multiple levels simultaneously. On the surface, it's a clever trick where Stan and Ford switch places and Bill gets trapped in the wrong mind. On a deeper level, it's about Bill's fundamental inability to understand human connection and sacrifice. Bill assumes everyone operates like he does, from pure self-interest and power-seeking. He can't conceive that Stan would willingly destroy his own mind. That incomprehension is what defeats him. The monster who understands everything about reality's structure understands nothing about what makes humans human. His last words before dying are desperate attempts to bargain, to offer power and knowledge, still not understanding that some people value other things more than power. The apocalypse itself, Weirdmageddon, demonstrates the show's visual ambition and willingness to commit fully to darkness before earning its light ending. The imagery of Bill's chaos dimension bleeding into reality is genuinely disturbing. People turn to stone, to tapestries, rearranged into impossible configurations, physics breaking down, a pyramid of frozen humans stacked as trophies, nightmare creatures roaming freely, causing suffering for entertainment. The show doesn't soften this for its young audience. It presents apocalypse with real weight and horror, trusting that kids can handle scary content when it's in service of meaningful story. The resistance formed by the remaining free humans shows the show's interest in community response to crisis. Different groups with different skills contributing to survival. Lazy Susan running the diner as a supply depot, Pacifica using her knowledge of secret passages, the multi-bear providing muscle, McGucket's inventions creating weapons and defenses. Everyone who seemed like a joke character earlier, now revealing competence and courage when it matters. The show rewards its investment in secondary characters by making them essential to the climax rather than just background. Grunkle Ford's character arc from prideful loner to someone who can accept help and value family takes the entire series to complete. When we first meet him, he trusts no one, believes he alone can solve problems, sees other people as either tools or obstacles. His time and other dimensions harden these tendencies. He learned to survive alone, to rely only on himself, to see attachment as weakness. His initial interactions with his family reflect this damage. He's dismissive of Stan's contributions. He sees Dipper as a protege rather than a nephew. He doesn't know how to just be with people without an agenda or purpose. The transformation happens gradually through forced cooperation during Weirdmageddon. Ford has to rely on Stan's street smarts and social skills. He has to accept that Dipper and Mabel bring value he can't provide. He has to acknowledge that his lone genius approach failed, while Stan's messy collaborative approach keeps people alive. By the series' end, Ford has learned what Stan always knew but couldn't articulate: that being smart isn't the same as being right. That family matters more than achievement, that the best life isn't the one with the most impressive accomplishments, but the one with the most meaningful connections. The show's use of codes and hidden messages throughout creates a participatory viewing experience that rewards close attention. Every episode contains ciphers in the credits. Background posters contain clues. Seemingly random details connect to larger mysteries. This approach transforms passive watching into active investigation. Fans built wikis, shared theories, decoded messages together. The show's creators engaged with this community, confirming theories, dropping hints, creating an interactive relationship between show and audience unusual for television. Some hidden messages are silly jokes, others contain crucial plot information. Some reference future episodes, others add character depth to past scenes. The variety means you can't ignore the codes as mere Easter eggs. They're integrated into the storytelling itself. Decoding Bill's warning about Stan's memories reveals information episodes before the show addresses it directly. Finding the author's hidden journals in the real world through clues in the show created real-world treasure hunts. The line between fiction and reality became deliberately blurred in ways that enhanced both. The finale's approach to endings demonstrates the show's thematic consistency. Summer has to end. Dipper and Mabel have to go home. Stan and Ford have to leave on their adventure. Everyone has to move forward. The show doesn't pretend this isn't sad. It doesn't minimize the loss. But it also doesn't present change as purely negative. Growing up means losing things. It also means gaining things. The kids will miss Gravity Falls, but they'll take what they learned there into their futures. Stan and Ford will miss the shack, but they'll finally have the adventure together they always should have had. The final scene of the bus, pulling away from Gravity Falls, with Dipper and Mabel looking back at the town one last time, captures everything the show understands about nostalgia and growth. You can't stay in the perfect moment forever. Trying to freeze time or prevent change only creates suffering. But the experiences you had, the people you knew, the ways you grew, those become part of you permanently. The summer ends, but what the summer meant continues. That's not a consolation prize. That's the actual price. Hirsch's decision to end the show after 2 seasons, instead of extending it, indefinitely demonstrates artistic integrity, increasingly rare in television. He had a story to tell with a specific arc and endpoint. He told that story. He ended it. Networks wanted more episodes. Fans wanted more episodes. But more episodes would have diluted the story, repeated beats, undermined the careful structure built over 40 episodes. Better to end while the show still felt essential than to continue until it felt tired. This choice reflects the show's own themes about knowing when to let go. Stan had to let go of his resentment to reconcile with Ford. Ford had to let go of his pride to accept help. Dipper had to let go of his crush on Wendy to have a real friendship with her. Mabel had to let go of permanent summer to grow up. The show itself had to let go of its own continuation to maintain its integrity. The meta level mirrors the story level. What the show teaches, it also practices. The influence of Gravity Falls on subsequent animated programming is substantial and still unfolding. It demonstrated that children's animation could sustain complex serialized storytelling. It proved that young audiences would engage with mysteries requiring close attention across seasons. It showed that visual density and hidden details increased rather than decreased engagement. Later shows like Steven Universe, Amphibia, and The Owl House built on foundations Gravity Falls established, assuming audiences wanted depth, continuity, and thematic sophistication. The show's handling of its young protagonists, without condescension or simplification, influenced how animation approaches child characters. Dipper and Mabel aren't miniature adults or simple archetypes. They're recognizably 12, with 12-year-old concerns and 12-year-old emotional responses. But they're also fully realized characters capable of growth and complexity. They make mistakes that matter. They learn lessons that stick. They change in ways that feel earned rather than imposed by plot necessity. Gravity Falls also demonstrated the commercial viability of trusting your audience. The conventional wisdom in children's programming was to keep things simple, repetitive, episodic. Make sure kids who miss episodes can jump in anywhere. Don't reference previous events too much. Don't build mysteries that require remembering details from earlier seasons. Gravity Falls ignored all of this and succeeded anyway. It proved that even young audiences prefer coherent ongoing narratives to disconnected episodes, that they'll remember details and make connections, that complexity creates rather than prevents investment. The show's treatment of gender roles and expectations remains quietly progressive without making a show of it. Mabel is feminine in her interests, loves boys and makeup and crafts and glitter, but she's also brave and competent and saves the day as often as Dipper does. Wendy is tough and cool, but also has depth and vulnerability. Pacifica starts as a stereotype of feminine vanity, but develops into someone complex with her own struggles and growth. The show never suggests that being feminine is incompatible with being strong or capable or important to the story. Similarly, it lets Dipper be anxious and insecure and physically weak, without suggesting these traits make him less valuable or less masculine. His worth comes from his cleverness, his determination, his loyalty to his sister. He doesn't have to become traditionally masculine to matter. Seuss is overweight and not conventionally attractive, but he's presented as worthy of love and respect without qualification. The show's world contains people of different body types, different presentations, different interests, and treats all of them as equally capable of heroism or villainy or complexity. The animation itself deserves examination for how it serves the show's purposes. The character designs are simple enough for consistent animation, but detailed enough for expressiveness. Background art contains layers of visual information that reward frame-by-frame examination. Action sequences are clearly staged and exciting without requiring massive budgets. The show looks distinctive, immediately recognizable, with a visual identity that matches its tonal identity. The Pacific Northwest setting comes through in color palettes, in flora and fauna, in the quality of light. You can feel that this is a place, not just a generic cartoon location. What Gravity Falls ultimately achieves is a complete artistic vision executed with discipline and care across every element. The writing, animation, voice acting, music, and visual design all serve the same thematic purposes and tonal goals. Nothing feels like compromise or like different teams working at cross purposes. This unity of vision is rare in television production, where many creators with different priorities must collaborate. Hirsch's strong authorial control, while sometimes controversial in production, resulted in a show that feels coherent and intentional from first frame to last. The show's influence extends beyond its immediate success to how it changed what television executives believed was possible in children's animation. Before Gravity Falls, the conventional wisdom held that kids wouldn't follow serialized narratives, that mystery boxes were too complex for young audiences, that you needed to explain everything clearly and repeatedly. Gravity Falls proved all of these assumptions wrong, and in doing so, opened doors for shows that followed. Steven Universe, The Owl House, Amphibia, these shows all benefited from the path Gravity Falls carved. They could pitch serialized narratives and complex mysteries because Gravity Falls had demonstrated the audience appetite existed. The show's approach to horror and darkness in children's media also established new boundaries for what was acceptable. Bill Cipher's psychological torture of characters, the genuinely disturbing imagery in some episodes, the real stakes and permanent consequences. All of this pushed against the limits of what Disney would allow in a children's show. Hirsch fought battles with standards and practices to include elements he considered essential to the show's vision. He won some and lost others. The victories expanded the territory of what future shows could attempt. When you see genuinely frightening moments in later Disney shows, you're seeing the legacy of those battles. Gravity Falls also changed how creators thought about endings. The decision to end the show after 2 seasons, to tell a complete story rather than continuing until cancellation or creative exhaustion, was unusual for a successful property. Networks prefer to extract maximum value from successful shows. Hirsch had to fight for the right and to end his story on his terms. That fight and that victory established a precedent. Creators could now point to Gravity Falls as evidence that planned endings could work commercially and artistically. The show's continued popularity in streaming and merchandising proved that a complete story retained value even after it stopped producing new episodes. The fandom that developed around Gravity Falls demonstrated new models for how audiences engage with television. Fans created elaborate theories, decoded ciphers, found hidden messages, connected obscure references. This level of engagement required the show to reward careful attention and analysis. Every frame potentially contained meaningful information. This changed how creators thought about constructing their shows. If you knew your audience would freeze frame and enhance every scene, you could hide information that way, create layers of meaning accessible only to dedicated viewers. This kind of depth became an expectation rather than a bonus. Consider how the show handles exposition and information delivery. Traditional television writing emphasizes clarity above all else. Make sure the audience understands what's happening and why. Repeat important information. Explain character motivations explicitly. Gravity Falls often does the opposite. Characters understand things the audience doesn't yet. Information gets revealed obliquely or visually. Motivations remain unclear until later. Revelations recontextualize earlier behavior. This approach trusts the audience to tolerate ambiguity, to hold questions in mind while waiting for answers, to actively work to understand rather than passively receiving explanation. The show's treatment of failure and loss also breaks from children's television conventions. Characters fail permanently at important goals. Dipper doesn't get the girl he wants. Ford's relationship with his brother remains damaged despite reconciliation. The twins have to leave Gravity Falls and their summer adventures behind. Not everything gets fixed. Not every wound heals completely. This honest approach to loss and limitation teaches more valuable lessons than stories where persistence guarantees success and every problem has a solution. Sometimes you do your best and still don't get what you wanted. Sometimes relationships stay complicated. Sometimes you have to let go of things you love. These are crucial life lessons that children's media often avoids. The humor in Gravity Falls deserves closer analysis for how it operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Surface-level jokes work for younger viewers. Wordplay and references reward older audiences. Dark humor and subtext add additional layers. A single scene might contain slapstick for kids, pop culture references for teenagers, and subtle adult humor that only parents will catch. This layered approach allows families to watch together, with each member finding appropriate content for their level. It also means the show ages with its audience. Jokes you missed at 12 become clear at 16. References you didn't understand on first viewing land on rewatches. The show's relationship to nostalgia is complex and worth examining. On one hand, it evokes specific 1980s and 90s aesthetics, references older media, creates a sense of longing for simpler times. On the other hand, it interrogates nostalgia, questions whether the past was actually better, acknowledges the dangers of living in memory rather than present reality. This dual approach allows the show to satisfy nostalgic impulses while also critiquing them. You can enjoy the retro video games and old-fashioned small-town setting while also recognizing that nostalgia can be toxic when it prevents growth or change. Gravity Falls also explores masculinity in ways that challenge traditional children's television models. Dipper struggles with physical weakness, with not being conventionally masculine, with feelings of inadequacy compared to stronger or cooler male figures. The show never suggests he needs to become traditionally masculine to matter. His value comes from intelligence, loyalty, emotional honesty. Grunkle Stan presents as traditionally masculine, gruff, and tough, and emotionally closed. But the show reveals this presentation as performance covering deep insecurity and pain. True strength in Gravity Falls comes from vulnerability, from admitting weakness, from asking for help. These are crucial lessons for young male viewers growing up in a culture that often equates masculinity with emotion, suppression. The show's treatment of capitalism and commerce through Stan's character offers surprisingly sharp social commentary for children's television. Stan is a con artist, a liar, someone who will sell anything to anyone if it makes a profit. But he's also sympathetic, understandable, someone shaped by economic precarity and lack of opportunity. The show doesn't condemn capitalism outright, but it does question the ethics of profit above all else, the cost of treating relationships as transactions, the damage done by prioritizing money over people. These themes play out through Stan's character arc as he learns that some things matter more than financial success. The music in Gravity Falls, composed by Brad Breek, deserves recognition for how it establishes and maintains the show's identity. The opening theme immediately signals adventure and mystery. Background music ranges from whimsical to genuinely frightening depending on scene requirements. Musical motifs connect characters and themes across episodes. The retro synthesizer elements evoke 1980s adventure films while remaining fresh and contemporary. Licensed music choices demonstrate impeccable taste, selecting songs that enhance scenes without overwhelming them. The overall sonic landscape feels cohesive and intentional. Voice direction in the show achieves remarkable consistency and quality. Child actors sound like actual children rather than adults performing childishness. Adult characters have distinct voices that match their personalities. Guest stars integrate seamlessly rather than standing out as celebrity cameos. Emotional moments land because the vocal performances sell the genuine feeling behind the words. Comedy works because timing and delivery enhance the writing rather than fighting against it. The voice work serves the story rather than calling attention to itself. The show's pacing within individual episodes demonstrates sophisticated understanding of narrative rhythm. Cold opens establish tone and hook interest. Act breaks come at moments of maximum tension. Resolution provides satisfaction while setting up future questions. Commercial breaks, when the show aired on television, came at natural pauses rather than awkward interruptions. The overall flow moves viewers through emotional beats efficiently while allowing important moments room to breathe. Nothing feels rushed or padded. Every scene serves multiple purposes, advancing plot while developing character while establishing theme. Gravity Falls also demonstrates exceptional skill in planting and paying off details. A throwaway line in Season 1 becomes crucial information in Season 2. Background details seed later revelations. Character quirks established early gain significance later. This kind of planning requires knowing your ending from the beginning, understanding the full trajectory of your story before you start telling it. Many shows improvise, letting story develop organically. Gravity Falls clearly had a plan, a structure, a destination. The confidence that comes from knowing where you're going allows for complexity and layering that improvised narratives can't achieve. The show's treatment of institutional authority, whether government, police, or other official bodies, is skeptically critical without being nihilistic. Authority figures are generally incompetent, corrupt, or both. The sheriff is useless. Government agents are threatening and untrustworthy. Parents are largely absent or ineffective. This forces young protagonists to solve their own problems, to rely on chosen family rather than official structures. This message, that institutions often fail, and you may need to create your own support systems, is valuable for young viewers who will encounter institutional failures in their own lives. Gravity Falls explores sibling relationships with unusual depth and honesty. Dipper and Mabel love each other but also annoy each other, compete with each other, sometimes hurt each other. Their relationship feels real because it includes conflict and resentment alongside affection and loyalty. The show never suggests that loving someone means never fighting with them or never wanting space from them. Healthy relationships include friction. Working through conflict strengthens bonds rather than weakening them. These lessons about relationships, delivered through Dipper and Mabel's dynamic, provide valuable models for viewers navigating their own sibling relationships. The show's handling of Mabel's character specifically challenges gender stereotypes while embracing femininity. Mabel loves traditionally feminine things, glitter and boys and crafts and cute animals, but she's also weird and aggressive and refuses to conform to expectations of how girls should behave. She's boy crazy but also independent. She's emotional but also tough. She's silly but also smart. The character demonstrates that femininity and strength aren't opposites, that you can love pink and also be brave, that traditional interests don't limit your possibilities. This representation matters for young female viewers learning what options exist for how to be a girl. The way Gravity Falls approaches queerness deserves examination, particularly given the time period and network constraints. The show includes clear queer subtext and coding throughout, with characters like Sheriff Blubbs and Deputy Durland eventually confirmed as a couple in the finale. While limited by what Disney would allow at the time, the show pushed boundaries and included representation where possible. Later shows like The Owl House, which features explicitly queer main characters, built on the foundation Gravity Falls helped establish. Progress happens incrementally, with each show pushing slightly further than what came before. The show's engagement with fan theories and online discussion created a unique feedback loop. Fans would develop elaborate theories, Creators would see these theories and sometimes incorporate elements into the show or deliberately mislead viewers. This interactive relationship between creators and audience was relatively new in 2012, but has become standard practice for mystery-based shows. Gravity Falls helped establish the model for how creators can engage with fan communities without compromising their creative vision or spoiling their own stories. Consider how the show handles redemption and forgiveness. Some characters get redemption arcs, others don't. The show distinguishes between people who made mistakes and want to change versus people who are fundamentally destructive and won't change. Gideon doesn't get redeemed because he refuses to acknowledge wrongdoing or change his behavior. Pacifica gets redeemed because she recognizes her family's toxicity and chooses differently. This nuanced approach teaches that forgiveness must be earned through change, that not everyone deserves redemption, that some patterns of behavior indicate someone who won't improve no matter how many chances they receive. The show's approach to mental health, while never explicit, shows characters dealing with anxiety, depression, trauma, and other psychological challenges. Dipper's anxiety manifests in overthinking and catastrophizing. Mabel uses manic energy and forced positivity to avoid processing difficult emotions. Stan buries trauma under gruffness and denial. Ford's obsession and paranoia stem from isolation and past betrayal. None of this is diagnosed or treated as medical issues, but the show depicts mental health struggles realistically and sympathetically. Characters learn healthier coping mechanisms. Support from others helps them manage their struggles. These depictions normalize mental health challenges and model recovery without requiring explicit mental health plotlines. Gravity Falls also demonstrates how to handle exposition in visual media. Rather than having characters explain things in dialogue, the show uses visual storytelling wherever possible. Journal pages convey information graphically. Flashbacks show rather than tell. Background details establish world rules without requiring explanation. When exposition is necessary, it's delivered efficiently and integrated into character moments rather than stopping the story for information dumps. This visual-first approach keeps the show moving while conveying complex information clearly. The show's treatment of choice and consequence teaches valuable lessons about responsibility. Characters make decisions that have lasting effects. Choices made in early episodes echo through later seasons. Mistakes have costs that can't be completely erased. This cause and effect structure demonstrates that actions matter, that decisions shape your life and the lives of others, that you can't always undo damage you've caused. These lessons about responsibility and consequence are more valuable than stories where everything resets at the end of each episode. Looking at Gravity Falls through this comprehensive lens reveals how effectively the show uses multiple narrative layers working simultaneously. Surface-level entertainment hooks kids with humor and adventure. Mystery elements engage older viewers who want to solve puzzles. Emotional storytelling creates investment in character relationships. Thematic depth provides substance for adults analyzing the show. This layered construction means different viewers extract different value from the same episodes. A child enjoys Mabel's antics while missing the commentary on codependency. A teenager connects with Dipper's insecurity while overlooking the show's critique of academic elitism. An adult appreciates the nuanced portrayal of Stan's redemption, while their kid just thinks he's funny. Everyone gets something meaningful from the show, regardless of what level they engage with. The finale's approach to closure demonstrates sophisticated understanding of what endings should accomplish. Weirdmageddon provides spectacle and stakes. The memory gun creates genuine tension about whether Stan will recover. The twins' decision to go home rather than stay in Gravity Falls forever validates that summer had to end. But the show doesn't answer every question or resolve every mystery. Some secrets remain hidden. Some relationships stay complicated. Life continues after the credits. This balance between resolution and openness feels true to how real experiences end. You get closure on the main emotional arcs while accepting that not everything ties up perfectly. Consider the show's treatment of power dynamics in relationships. Authority figures aren't automatically right. Adults make mistakes that kids have to deal with. Parents can be absent or flawed. The show doesn't present a simplistic view where grown-ups have all the answers and children should just obey. But it also doesn't swing to the opposite extreme, where all adults are incompetent and kids are always right. Stan has wisdom earned through hard experience, even though he's deeply flawed. Suze provides valuable perspective, despite being childlike in many ways. The show depicts a realistic range of competence and dysfunction across all age groups. Gravity Falls also examines how people construct identity through the stories they tell about themselves. Dipper defines himself as the smart investigator who solves mysteries. Mabel sees herself as the fun-loving optimist who makes people happy. Stan presents himself as the tough con man who doesn't need anyone. Ford views himself as the misunderstood genius whose brilliance separates him from ordinary people. Each character's self-narrative shapes their behavior and choices. The show demonstrates how these self-stories can be both empowering and limiting. Dipper's identity as the smart one drives him to learn and grow, but also creates anxiety when he feels he's not living up to that role. Mabel's commitment to positivity helps her maintain relationships, but prevents her from processing negative emotions healthily. The way the show handles moral complexity around deception and lying offers valuable lessons. Not all lies are equally wrong. Lying to protect someone's feelings differs from lying for personal gain. Keeping secrets to prevent harm differs from keeping secrets to avoid consequences. The show presents situations where honesty would cause unnecessary pain, and kindness requires some deception. It also shows situations where lies, even well-intentioned ones, create worse problems than truth would have. This nuanced approach teaches that ethics isn't about following simple rules, but about considering context, consequences, and intentions. Gravity Falls demonstrates how effective world-building happens through accumulation of details rather than exposition dumps. The town gains texture through background gags, minor characters with recurring roles, locations that serve multiple story purposes, and consistent internal logic about how the supernatural operates. By the finale, Gravity Falls feels like a real place with history and depth. This wasn't achieved through lengthy explanations, but through careful attention to consistency and detail across dozens of episodes. Each small addition contributes to the whole without drawing excessive attention to itself. The show's treatment of ambition and what constitutes success challenges conventional narratives. Ford's pursuit of scientific glory led to disaster and isolation. Dipper's desire to be seen as mature and capable creates problems when he prioritizes appearing competent over actually being safe. Mabel's need to keep everything fun and positive prevents her from developing coping mechanisms for difficulty. The show suggests that conventional markers of success matter less than genuine connection, self-awareness, and doing right by people you care about. Stan's arc reinforces this. His greatest achievement isn't financial success or social status, but sacrificing his identity to save Ford and creating a loving home for the twins despite his limitations. Looking at how Gravity Falls influenced subsequent animated shows reveals its impact on the medium. Steven Universe, Amphibia, The Owl House, and other series built on foundations Gravity Falls established. Serialized storytelling became more acceptable in children's animation. Networks became more willing to allow shows with planned endings, rather than running indefinitely. Mystery elements and viewer participation through theory crafting became standard tools. LGBTQ representation expanded from subtext to text. Complex themes about family, identity, and growing up became expected rather than exceptional. Gravity Falls didn't create all these trends, but it demonstrated their commercial and critical viability, making it easier for subsequent shows to push further. The show's approach to humor deserves déjeuner examination. Jokes operate on multiple levels simultaneously. Visual gags happen in the background while dialogue continues. References reward adult viewers without alienating kids who miss them. Character-based humor emerges from personalities rather than random wackiness. The comedy never undercuts emotional moments or trivializes serious themes. This sophisticated approach to humor demonstrates that children's entertainment doesn't require dumbing down or choosing between funny and meaningful. The show proves you can be genuinely hilarious while telling emotionally resonant stories about complex themes. Gravity Falls also models how to adapt and revise plans without losing coherence. The show was originally conceived as having more seasons. When Hirsch decided to end it after 2, he had to compress and revise his planned arcs. Some characters got less development than originally intended. Some plot points were resolved faster than initially planned. But the show maintains consistency and doesn't feel rushed or incomplete. This demonstrates that quality matters more than quantity, that knowing when to end preserves integrity better than stretching content beyond its natural conclusion. The representation of different family structures throughout the show normalizes diversity without making it a plot point. The twins come from a nuclear family but spend the summer with their great uncle. Seuss was raised by his grandmother after his father left. Pacifica lives with wealthy parents in a traditional but dysfunctional family. Wendy's family includes her father and brothers after her mother's death. The show depicts all these structures matter-of-factly, suggesting that what makes a family functional isn't its configuration, but how members treat each other. Consider how Gravity Falls handles the concept of home and belonging. For the twins, Gravity Falls becomes a second home, a place where they discover themselves and form crucial relationships. But the show doesn't suggest they should stay there permanently. Going home to California is presented as the right choice, even though it means leaving somewhere they love. This teaches that you can belong in multiple places, that leaving somewhere doesn't erase what you gained there, that growth sometimes requires moving forward rather than trying to preserve things as they are. The bittersweet recognition that the summer had to end validates the genuine pain of transition while affirming that change is necessary. The show's treatment of redemption arcs demonstrates understanding of what makes these narratives work. Pacifica's redemption succeeds because we see her internal struggle between family conditioning and her own conscience. We understand why she acted badly without excusing the behavior. We see her make different choices when given opportunities to change. Her redemption feels earned because it develops gradually across multiple episodes and costs her something. Contrast this with Gideon, who gets multiple chances to change, but consistently chooses to escalate his harmful behavior. The show demonstrates that redemption requires genuine remorse and changed behavior, not just feeling bad about consequences. Gravity Falls also explores how trauma manifests and how people cope with it. Stan's childhood poverty and rejection by his father shaped his entire life approach. Ford's bullying and isolation drove him to seek validation through academic achievement. Bill's destruction of his home dimension left him unable to exist in his original form. The show doesn't explicitly discuss trauma, but depicts its effects realistically. Characters make choices shaped by past pain. They develop defense mechanisms that once served them but now create problems. Healing happens through connection and gradual learning rather than sudden revelation. This sophisticated portrayal of trauma's long-term effects treats the audience with respect. The way the show balances episodic and serialized storytelling offers lessons for narrative structure. Each episode works as a standalone story with its own beginning, middle, and end. But ongoing mysteries, developing relationships, and evolving character dynamics reward viewers who watch in order. This structure accommodates both casual viewers who catch random episodes and dedicated fans who analyze every detail. The show proves you don't have to choose between accessibility and depth. Careful planning allows both simultaneously. Looking at Gravity Falls' use of symbolism reveals how visual storytelling conveys meaning beyond dialogue. Bill's triangular form and single eye connect to Illuminati imagery and surveillance themes. The portal's circular design contrasts with Bill's sharp angles. Journals are literal books of secrets that characters must learn to read correctly. The zodiac wheel in the finale represents how the characters must unite their different strengths. These visual symbols reinforce themes and create cohesion without requiring explicit explanation. The show's treatment of knowledge and information demonstrates awareness that knowing things changes you. Characters who learn secrets carry that burden. Information can't be unlearned. The journals grant power, but also responsibility. Ford's knowledge isolated him. Dipper's discoveries about the town put him in danger. Understanding the truth about Stan's past changes how the family relates to him. This treatment of knowledge as transformative rather than neutral reflects real experience. Learning certain truths fundamentally alters your perspective, and you can't return to previous innocence. Gravity Falls handles the relationship between individual agency and determinism through the prophecy and destiny elements. The prophecy about Bill's return seems to suggest predetermined fate, but characters make choices that fulfill or subvert expectations. The prophecy comes true, but not in the way anyone anticipated. This suggests that while certain patterns might be predictable, individuals still have agency in how events unfold. Destiny exists as probability rather than certainty. Your choices matter even within larger patterns beyond your control. The show also examines how communities function and what makes them resilient. Gravity Falls. The town has quirky residents who mostly accept each other's weirdness. When crisis strikes during Weirdmageddon, the community comes together despite previous conflicts. The town's survival depends on cooperation between people who don't particularly like each other but recognize their interdependence. This models how functional communities require tolerance, mutual aid, and willingness to work together when necessary, even if you don't socialize during peacetime. Consider the show's approach to explaining versus showing. When something needs establishing, the show uses visual storytelling wherever possible. We see Stan's childhood rather than hearing about it. We watch Ford's descent into paranoia rather than having it described. Journal entries convey information graphically through drawings and diagrams. This visual-first approach respects the audience's intelligence and uses the strengths of the animated medium rather than relying on dialogue exposition. Gravity Falls demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how reveals should function in mystery narratives. Information is parceled out strategically. Clues are planted early and paid off later. Red herrings mislead without feeling cheap. Major reveals recontextualize previous events without contradicting them. The author reveal works because it answers questions while creating new ones. Stan's twin twist succeeds because careful viewers could have figured it out, while most viewers are genuinely surprised. This balance between predictability and surprise shows mastery of mystery storytelling mechanics. The show's treatment of different types of intelligence challenges narrow definitions of what being smart means. Dipper has book smarts and analytical thinking. Mabel has emotional intelligence and creative problem solving. Stan has street smarts and practical knowledge. Ford has academic brilliance and scientific genius. Seuss has mechanical aptitude and emotional wisdom. The show demonstrates that all these forms of intelligence have value, that different situations require different types of thinking, that no single form of intelligence is superior to others. This inclusive approach validates different ways of being smart. Looking at how Gravity Falls handles its own mythology reveals careful planning. The show establishes rules about how supernatural elements work and largely follows them. Bill can't enter the physical world without being summoned. The journals contain specific information rather than whatever's convenient for the plot. Time travel follows consistent logic. This internal consistency makes the world feel real and creates genuine stakes. When rules are established and followed, viewers trust that events matter and consequences are real. The finale's emotional resolution centers on sacrifice and memory. Stan's willingness to lose himself to save everyone demonstrates love through action rather than words. The family's grief over his memory loss and joy at his recovery creates genuine emotional stakes. The show doesn't cheapen this by making his recovery instant or complete. He gradually remembers through effort and connection. This treatment of memory and identity explores how we're shaped by our experiences and relationships, how losing memories means losing parts of yourself, how love persists even when memory fails. Gravity Falls earns its emotional weight through accumulation rather than manipulation. The show builds relationships across episodes so that when those relationships are tested or threatened, viewers genuinely care about the outcomes. Stan and Ford's reconciliation matters because we've seen their conflict develop over multiple episodes. We understand what they've lost and what's at stake in repairing their bond. The show doesn't rely on sad music and tearful speeches to create emotion. It creates situations where emotion emerges naturally from character and circumstance. The treatment of Ford's character demonstrates how intelligence without wisdom creates problems. Ford is brilliant but arrogant. His academic success convinced him he was special and destined for greatness. This made him vulnerable to Bill's manipulation. Bill appealed to Ford's ego and his desire to be recognized as exceptional. Ford's intelligence became a weakness because he believed being smart meant he couldn't be fooled. The show uses Ford to explore how intellectual gifts can create blind spots, how arrogance undermines judgment, how the need to feel special makes you susceptible to flattery and exploitation. Stan represents the opposite trajectory. He's not academically brilliant, but he develops practical wisdom through hard experience. Getting thrown out of his home forced him to survive on his wits. Running cons taught him to read people and situations. Raising Dipper and Mabel gave him purpose beyond himself. Stan's growth happens through suffering and adaptation, rather than through study or natural talent. The show validates this path to wisdom as equally legitimate to Ford's academic approach. The parallel between Stan and Ford's childhood bond and Dipper and Mabel's relationship creates thematic resonance. Both sets of twins are extremely close, but handle conflict differently. Stan and Ford let one fight destroy their relationship for decades. Dipper and Mabel face similar tensions about growing up and growing apart, but choose to maintain their bond despite differences. The show suggests that relationships require active choice and effort, that closeness isn't automatic even between people who love each other, that you can learn from others' mistakes if you're paying attention. Bill Cipher's defeat comes through exploiting his arrogance and assumptions. He believes he understands everything and can't be surprised. The zodiac wheel almost works against him until Stan and Ford's argument disrupts it. Bill thinks he's won when he enters Stan's mind to get the equation. But Bill doesn't know about the twins' switch. His overconfidence blinds him to possibilities he hasn't considered. The show demonstrates that even near-omniscient beings have weaknesses, usually connected to their strengths. Bill's incredible power made him certain of victory, which made him careless. The mechanics of the twin switch reveal character through action. Stan volunteers to have his mind erased. Ford performs the procedure despite knowing he's destroying his brother's memories. Mabel and Dipper support the plan while grieving its necessity. Each character's choice reveals their priorities and values. Stan proves his love through sacrifice. Ford accepts terrible responsibility to save everyone. The kids demonstrate trust in adults while processing loss. These aren't abstract character traits stated in dialogue. They're demonstrated through impossible choices made under extreme pressure. Memory as a theme connects to identity in sophisticated ways. The show asks, what makes you yourself? Is it your memories and experiences? Your relationships with others? Something essential that persists regardless of what you remember? Stan's recovery suggests identity is partly stored in relationships. People who love you can help you remember who you were, but recovery is incomplete. Some memories don't return. Stan has to reconstruct parts of his identity rather than simply recovering them intact. This nuanced treatment acknowledges that some losses are permanent even in stories with happy endings. The show's approach to redemption arcs avoids easy forgiveness. Gideon doesn't become good through one noble act. He makes a choice to help during Weirdmageddon, but he's still fundamentally selfish and obsessive. Pacifica's growth is gradual. She takes small steps away from her parents' values. She chooses to help save the town. But the show doesn't pretend this erases years of learned behavior. Real change takes time and repeated choices. The show respects this reality rather than offering instant transformation through single moments of clarity. Northwest Mansion Mystery demonstrates how the show uses genre conventions while subverting them. It's structured like a classic ghost story with a haunted mansion and a vengeful spirit. But the ghost has legitimate grievances. The Northwest ancestor actually did wrong the townspeople. Pacifica's family has maintained this injustice through lies and privilege. The ghost isn't defeated through exorcism or clever tricks. The solution is acknowledging wrongdoing and making amends. This transforms a standard horror plot into commentary about class, privilege, and historical injustice. The show handles Dipper's crush on Wendy with more maturity than most children's media. Dipper's feelings are real, and the show takes them seriously. But it also makes clear that Wendy sees him as a friend and little brother. The age gap matters. She's in high school dating other high school students. He's 12. The show doesn't mock Dipper for his feelings, but it also doesn't pretend the relationship could work. Roadside Attraction addresses this directly. Dipper needs to move on. His obsession with Wendy prevents him from seeing other possibilities. The resolution isn't Wendy suddenly returning his feelings. It's Dipper accepting reality and maintaining a friendship that matters to both of them. Mabel's romantic relationships follow different patterns. Her crushes are age-appropriate, but often misguided. She falls for guys based on surface characteristics without knowing them well. The show gently mocks this, while acknowledging it's developmentally normal. Mabel learns about compatibility and genuine connection versus projection and fantasy. Her growth isn't about finding the right boy. It's about understanding herself better and recognizing what she actually wants versus what she thinks she should want. The journal as a plot device demonstrates elegant storytelling economy. One object serves multiple functions. It's the gateway to the mystery that drives the plot. It's evidence of Ford's existence before he appears. It's a catalog of creatures and dangers establishing the rules of this world. It's a record of Ford's deteriorating mental state as Bill's influence grows. It contains warnings and information that become relevant at specific moments. Having this single object serve so many purposes keeps the story focused while allowing complex layering of information and revelation. Grunkle Stan's character design communicates personality instantly. He's heavyset and slouching, dressed in casual clothes with a fez and glasses. Everything about his appearance suggests a small-time huckster running a tourist trap. The design makes his toughness and capability surprising when revealed. You don't expect this schlubby old man to be competent in fights or to have built an interdimensional portal. The disconnect between appearance and ability creates productive tension. Stan cultivates an image of being a harmless fool while actually being formidable and dangerous when necessary. The show's treatment of different family structures acknowledges complexity without judgment. Dipper and Mabel's parents are barely present in the show. They sent their kids away for summer. We don't know much about their home situation. The show doesn't demonize them or suggest they're bad parents. Sometimes kids need to be elsewhere for the summer. Sometimes parents can't provide what kids need at particular moments. Stan becomes a parental figure despite not being their father. Family isn't just biology or legal relationships. It's who takes care of you and who you can depend on. Seuss represents working-class perspective rarely seen in children's media. He works a low-wage job at a tourist trap. He lives with his grandmother. He didn't go to college. But the show treats him with respect and affection. Seuss is kind, emotionally intelligent, mechanically skilled, and loyal. His lack of formal education doesn't make him stupid. His economic situation doesn't make him lesser. The show demonstrates that worth isn't determined by class or credentials. Seuss's contentment with his life challenges narratives that suggest everyone must pursue upward mobility to have value. The show uses foreshadowing with remarkable precision. Elements introduced as jokes or background details become plot relevant later. Stan's secret room appears in the opening credits from episode 1. Bill appears in background images before his proper introduction. The bunker and its contents are established before becoming crucial. This careful planning rewards attentive viewers while not punishing casual viewers who miss details. The show works on multiple levels simultaneously. Weirdmageddon's apocalyptic imagery draws from multiple sources while creating something distinctive. Bill's throne of frozen humans references religious and mythological imagery. The creatures he unleashes combine body horror with cartoon logic. The restructuring of reality into nightmare landscape suggests both Hieronymus Bosch paintings and surrealist art. The show creates genuinely unsettling visuals while maintaining its overall tone. This balancing act demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how far you can push darkness in ostensibly family-friendly media. The show's humor serves multiple functions beyond entertainment. Jokes establish character, personality, and relationship dynamics. Comedic moments provide relief from tension without undercutting stakes. Background gags reward repeat viewing. Humor makes difficult themes more accessible to younger viewers while not talking down to them. The variety of humor styles means different viewers find different things funny, broadening the show's appeal across age groups and sensibilities. Stan's character arc involves accepting vulnerability after decades of emotional armor. He built walls after his brother rejected him, and his father threw him out. He learned to trust no one and expect betrayal. Opening the Mystery Shack and raising Dipper and Mabel forced him to care again, despite his attempts to maintain distance. His growth isn't about becoming a different person. It's about allowing himself to be the person he actually is, underneath the protective layers. The finale's sacrifice represents Stan finally choosing connection over self-protection completely. The show demonstrates how effective mysteries balance information and withholding. Viewers need enough clues to engage with the puzzle. Too little information creates frustration. But revealing too much too soon eliminates tension. Gravity Falls parcels out information strategically. Each reveal answers some questions while creating new ones. The author's identity is protected through misdirection and incomplete information. When revealed, it recontextualizes previous events without contradicting them. This calibration of revelation and mystery maintains engagement across the entire series. Time travel episodes could easily create contradictions, but the show establishes clear rules. Changes to the past create new timelines rather than overwriting the original. Blendon represents the time police who prevent paradoxes. When Dipper and Mabel travel to the past, their actions set up events in the present rather than changing established history. This approach to time travel avoids the logical problems that plague many time travel stories. By establishing rules and following them, The show maintains internal consistency. The zodiac wheel introduced in the finale represents the entire cast working together. Each symbol corresponds to a character. Activating it requires all of them standing together in specific positions. This visual representation of unity and cooperation makes abstract concepts concrete. When Stan and Ford's argument breaks the wheel, it's not just dialogue about failure to cooperate. It's visual representation of unity literally shattering. The show uses symbolic imagery to enhance emotional and thematic moments. Gravity Falls treats small-town life with affection while acknowledging its limitations. The town is insular and strange. Many residents are odd or narrow-minded, but they're also genuine and supportive when it matters. The show doesn't romanticize small-town existence or present it as superior to urban life. It simply depicts this particular place and these particular people with specificity and care. The town feels real because it contains multitudes. Characters are complex and contradictory in ways that reflect actual human behavior. The show's final message centers on change and acceptance. Summer ends, childhood ends. People grow up and grow apart. Fighting these realities causes suffering. Dipper and Mabel return home different from when they arrived. They've faced genuine danger and made impossible choices. They've learned about family complexity and personal strength, but they're still kids. The show doesn't pretend they're now adults or that Summer's lessons solved everything. Growth is gradual and ongoing. The finale provides closure while acknowledging that life continues beyond the story's end. Animation choices throughout the series demonstrate thoughtful craft. Character designs are distinctive and expressive. Background art contains elaborate detail rewarding close viewing. Action sequences are clearly staged and easy to follow. The show uses visual storytelling wherever possible rather than relying on dialogue exposition. This respects the medium's strengths and the audience's intelligence. Every frame contains intentional choices about color, composition, and visual information. Gravity Falls ultimately succeeds because it takes its audience seriously regardless of age. The show doesn't simplify themes or talk down to viewers. It trusts that kids can handle complexity, ambiguity, and difficult emotions if presented thoughtfully. It offers adults genuine substance rather than just nostalgia or references over kids' heads. This approach creates media that works for everyone without being specifically for everyone. The show is unapologetically itself, trusting that being specific and authentic attracts audience better than trying to please all possible viewers. The show's approach to mystery construction offers lessons applicable beyond entertainment. Effective mysteries balance revelation with concealment. Too much information too soon deflates tension. Too little creates frustration rather than intrigue. Gravity Falls calibrates this balance through strategic information distribution. Early episodes establish questions without demanding immediate answers. The author's identity matters, but doesn't prevent enjoying individual episodes. Viewers can engage casually or dive deep into analysis. This accessibility combined with depth creates broad appeal. Mystery writing requires discipline. Every clue must serve purpose. Random strange elements feel arbitrary rather than mysterious. The show plants specific details that connect to larger patterns. The zodiac wheel appears in opening credits and background imagery long before its significance emerges. Viewers notice it subconsciously, creating familiarity that pays off during revelation. This technique makes discoveries feel earned rather than arbitrary. The information was always there for those paying attention. Foreshadowing in Gravity Falls operates on multiple timescales. Some details pay off within episodes, others develop across seasons. Bill Cipher's betrayal of Ford is foreshadowed through his behavior toward others. He makes deals that seem advantageous but contain hidden costs. He manipulates people through their desires and weaknesses. These patterns establish his character, so his ultimate betrayal feels inevitable in retrospect. The clues were present but only become obvious after revelation. The show also demonstrates effective use of red herrings. Not every strange detail connects to main mysteries. Some elements exist purely for atmosphere or individual episode plots. This prevents the show from feeling mechanistic where everything must connect to everything else. Real places contain unexplained oddities. Gravity Falls feels lived in partly because not every weird thing has grand significance. The challenge is making red herrings feel purposeful rather than like wasted setup. Character-driven mystery maintains engagement when plot mysteries resolve. Learning about Stan's past and his relationship with Ford provides emotional stakes beyond just solving puzzles. The mystery isn't just what happened, but why and how it affected these specific people. This emotional investment keeps viewers engaged even when they've figured out plot details. Caring about characters means caring about Revelation's impact on them. Gravity Falls treats childhood seriously without making it precious. Kids in the show face real danger and make meaningful choices. Adults don't always save them. Sometimes kids save adults. This validates young viewers' experiences and capabilities while acknowledging that childhood is genuinely different from adulthood. Dipper and Mabel have limited power in many situations, but the power they do have matters. Their choices affect outcomes. This balance respects kids without pretending childhood and adulthood are identical. The show's depiction of sibling relationships resonates because it includes conflict alongside affection. Dipper and Mabel love each other, but also frustrate each other. They want different things. Their needs sometimes conflict. The show doesn't resolve this by making one sibling always compromise or by pretending conflicts don't matter. Instead, it shows siblings working through disagreements while maintaining their bond. This reflects actual sibling dynamics more accurately than idealized portrayals. Mabel's character demonstrates that traditionally, feminine interests and traits aren't weak or lesser. She loves crafts, romance, and making friends. These aren't portrayed as shallow or inferior to Dipper's mystery solving. Mabel's social skills and emotional intelligence solve problems Dipper's analytical approach can't. Her optimism and creativity are strengths, not naivety. The show validates different types of intelligence and different approaches to problems without ranking them hierarchically. Dipper's insecurity about masculinity reflects real pressures boys face. He worries about being man enough, tough enough, cool enough. The show acknowledges these pressures while suggesting they're often misguided. Dipper's worth doesn't depend on conforming to narrow masculine ideals. His intelligence, loyalty, and courage matter more than whether he's physically strong or socially dominant. This provides alternative models of masculinity without lecturing about gender. Ford's character explores how genius and social isolation connect. His intelligence set him apart from peers. Academic success provided validation, but not connection. When he found someone who understood his work, Bill Cipher exploited that loneliness. Ford's tragedy isn't his intelligence, but his isolation and his need for recognition. The show suggests that genius without human connection leads to vulnerability and poor judgment. Stan's character arc demonstrates that people can change without becoming completely different. Stan remains himself throughout the series. He's still rough around edges, still cuts corners, still uses humor to deflect emotion. But he also grows. He repairs his relationship with Ford. He prioritizes family over self-interest. He makes genuine sacrifice. This character development feels earned because it builds on existing traits rather than replacing them. People change gradually, not through sudden transformation. The show's humor operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Kids laugh at physical comedy and silly situations. Adults catch references and more subtle jokes. But nothing requires outside knowledge to be funny. The humor emerges from character and situation. Seuss is funny because of who he is, not because he references other media. This approach means jokes work for everyone, even if different viewers find different elements amusing. Gravity Falls uses genre conventions while maintaining distinct identity. It's not just pastiche or reference collection. The show has specific aesthetic, tone, and themes that define it beyond its influences. Twin Peaks inspiration is obvious, but Gravity Falls isn't just kid-friendly Twin Peaks. It's its own creation that happens to share some DNA with other mystery stories. This balance between honoring influences and maintaining originality keeps the show from feeling derivative. The animation style serves the story rather than drawing attention to itself. Character designs are simple enough for consistent animation, but distinctive enough for clear personality expression. Backgrounds contain detail without overwhelming foreground action. The style isn't hyper-realistic or aggressively stylized. It occupies middle ground that allows focus on story and character. This restraint demonstrates confidence. The show doesn't need flashy animation to hold attention. Voice acting in Gravity Falls deserves recognition for bringing characters to life. Kristen Schaal makes Mabel simultaneously enthusiastic and genuine. Jason Ritter gives Dipper appropriate earnestness without making him annoying. Alex Hirsch voices multiple characters with distinct personalities. The performances feel natural rather than performed. This allows viewers to forget they're hearing actors and simply experience characters. Music and sound design enhance atmosphere without overwhelming scenes. The opening theme is memorable and appropriate. Background music supports emotional beats. Sound effects add to comedy and action without becoming distracting. The audio landscape feels complete and professional. This technical competence allows story and character to remain focused rather than production elements drawing attention. The show's production schedule allowed for planned storytelling. Knowing the endpoint in advance enabled setup and payoff across entire series. Details in early episodes connect to finale because creators knew where story was heading. This contrasts with shows that continue indefinitely and must improvise ongoing plots. Gravity Falls benefits from being conceived as complete story with beginning, middle, and end. Limited episode count forced efficiency. Every episode must serve purpose. Filler would waste precious time. This constraint produced tighter storytelling. Each episode advances plot, develops character, or both. Even lighter episodes contribute to overall narrative or thematic development. The show contains no truly skippable episodes because none exist purely to fill episode order. Creator involvement throughout production maintained consistent vision. Alex Hirsch wrote or co-wrote most episodes and remained heavily involved in all aspects. This prevented the dilution that sometimes occurs when multiple writers with different visions contribute to series. Gravity Falls feels coherent because one creative sensibility guided it throughout. This doesn't diminish others' contributions, but explains the show's unified tone and direction. The decision to end after 2 seasons demonstrates artistic integrity. The story reached natural conclusion. Continuing would require either repetition or contradicting established elements. Rather than extend the show past its natural endpoint, creators chose to finish on their terms. This benefits the work, even if it disappointed viewers wanting more. Complete story with satisfying ending has more value than indefinite continuation that gradually degrades quality. Fan response to Gravity Falls demonstrates hunger for intelligent all-ages entertainment. The show found passionate audience across demographics. Online communities formed around analyzing episodes and creating fan content. This engagement suggests that audiences respond to media that respects their intelligence and emotional sophistication. The success proves that quality storytelling appeals broadly when executed well. The show's legacy includes inspiring other creators. Several animated series cite Gravity Falls as influence. Its success helped demonstrate that serialized storytelling could work in children's animation. Networks became more willing to support shows with ongoing plots and mysteries. This expanded possibilities for the medium and benefited subsequent creators. Gravity Falls also contributed to increased acceptance of animation as legitimate art form. Critical acclaim and broad audience appeal challenged assumptions that animation is only for kids or that it can't achieve artistic sophistication. The show demonstrated that the medium imposes no inherent limitations on storytelling complexity or thematic depth. Educational value exists in the show beyond explicit lessons. Mysteries encourage analytical thinking and attention to detail. Moral complexity requires viewers to consider different perspectives. Character development demonstrates that people contain contradictions and grow over time. These implicit lessons emerge from story rather than being stated directly. This indirect education is often more effective than explicit teaching. The show's treatment of trust and betrayal provides framework for understanding relationships. Bill's cipher represents ultimate betrayal, exploiting Ford's trust for selfish ends. Stan and Ford's broken relationship demonstrates how misunderstanding and pride damage bonds. Dipper and Mabel's conflicts show how even loving relationships include tension. These various depictions of trust create nuanced understanding of relationship dynamics. Gravity Falls portrays power and responsibility through multiple lenses. Stan gains power through the portal but uses it to fix his mistake. Ford gains knowledge but fails to use it wisely. Bill has immense power but uses it purely for selfish entertainment and domination. Dipper and Mabel have limited power but use what they have responsibly. These different relationships to power explore what makes power use ethical or harmful. The show examines identity and self-knowledge through character journeys. Dipper struggles with who he is versus who he wants to be. Mabel faces tension between her authentic self and others' expectations. Stan hides his true identity for decades. Ford's identity centers on being special and brilliant, making failure devastating. These explorations of identity resonate because everyone navigates similar questions about authentic self versus performed self. Memory and its manipulation appear throughout the series. The memory gun erases specific memories, raising questions about identity and continuity. If memories can be removed, what remains of self? Stan's memory loss in the finale creates genuine stakes beyond physical danger. His memories contain his identity and relationships. Losing them means losing himself, even if his body survives. This treatment of memory respects its fundamental importance to personhood. The show's approach to death is honest without being traumatic. Characters face mortal danger. Some deaths are implied, though rarely shown explicitly. The possibility of death makes danger feel real, without exposing young viewers to graphic content. This balance maintains tension while remaining appropriate for the audience. Death exists as consequence and motivator without becoming focus. Sacrifice appears repeatedly as expression of love and commitment. Stan sacrifices his identity to save Ford. Ford offers to sacrifice himself to stop Bill. Dipper considers sacrificing his apprenticeship for Mabel. These sacrifices demonstrate that love requires putting others' needs above your own desires. The show presents sacrifice as sometimes necessary without glorifying suffering or suggesting that self-neglect equals virtue. Forgiveness and reconciliation receive nuanced treatment. Stan and Ford's reconciliation takes time and effort. Apologizing isn't enough. They must understand each other and choose to move forward despite past hurt. This process feels realistic because it acknowledges that serious rifts don't heal instantly. Forgiveness requires work from everyone involved, not just the person who caused harm. The show demonstrates healthy and unhealthy relationship patterns. Dipper and Mabel's relationship is fundamentally healthy despite conflicts. They communicate, compromise, and prioritize each other. Stan and Ford's relationship was unhealthy, characterized by competition and poor communication. Bill's relationships are purely manipulative and exploitative. These contrasts help viewers recognize relationship health markers without explicit instruction. Gravity Falls treats growing up as bittersweet rather than purely positive or negative. Childhood has genuine value, and losing it involves real loss. But growth also brings new capabilities and understanding. The show doesn't suggest that childhood is perfect or that adulthood is terrible. Both have advantages and challenges. This balanced perspective validates nostalgia while acknowledging that moving forward is necessary and can be positive. The finale's emotional impact comes from synthesis of everything the show built. Characters we've known for 2 seasons face their greatest challenge. Mysteries resolve in ways that recontextualize earlier events. Relationships reach culmination. Themes crystallize. This convergence creates satisfying conclusion because it feels both surprising and inevitable. The pieces were always there. Now they fit together completely. Stan's memory sacrifice works dramatically because it risks what matters most to him. Physical danger wouldn't carry same weight. Stan has faced physical threats repeatedly, but his memories and identity, his connection to family, these represent his actual self. Risking them demonstrates ultimate love and courage. The sacrifice feels proportional to what it accomplishes, stopping Bill's apocalypse. The memory recovery montage provides catharsis. We see Stan gradually remember his family through exposure to meaningful objects and stories. This demonstrates that identity isn't just individual memory, but exists in relationships and shared experiences. Others hold pieces of us. This communal aspect of identity means Stan can be reconstructed through family participation. It's hopeful without being unrealistic about memory loss severity. Bill's defeat comes through collective effort rather than single hero. Everyone contributes. The Zodiac Wheel represents this unity. Even though the wheel fails, the principle of cooperation ultimately succeeds. Bill loses because he underestimates bonds between people. His isolation and inability to understand genuine connection become his weakness. This thematic victory reinforces the show's values about relationships and community. The show ends with Dipper and Mabel leaving Gravity Falls. Summer concludes. They return to ordinary life fundamentally changed by extraordinary experiences. This mirrors how childhood experiences shape us even after childhood ends. The summer becomes formative memory that influences who they become. This structure validates intense childhood experiences while acknowledging that life continues beyond them. Gravity Falls achieves something rare in creating work that satisfies completely while leaving viewers wanting more. The story is finished. All major questions are answered. Character arcs reach appropriate conclusions, yet the world feels rich enough that infinite other stories could exist within it. This balance between closure and possibility represents ideal ending, finished but not exhausted. The show's treatment of morality avoids simplistic good versus evil framing. Most characters exist in moral gray areas. Stan breaks laws and lies constantly, but loves his family. Gideon genuinely loves Mabel, but becomes obsessive and dangerous. Pacifica starts unlikable, but reveals depth and capacity for change. Even Bill, the clearest villain, represents understandable desire for freedom from his dimension's limitations. Taken to sociopathic extreme, this nuanced morality reflects reality better than pure heroes and villains. Gravity Falls demonstrates how to address serious topics in family entertainment without becoming preachy or inappropriate. Trust, identity, family dysfunction, growing up, mortality. These heavy themes appear throughout, but never overwhelm the adventure and humor. The show trusts its audience to understand layered storytelling. Kids engage with surface adventure while noticing deeper elements. Adults appreciate full thematic complexity. This multi-level approach respects viewers of all ages. The series proves animation can achieve artistic and narrative sophistication rivaling any medium. Voice acting conveys subtle emotion. Visual storytelling communicates without dialogue. Symbolism operates throughout. Music enhances meaning. Every element serves the story. Animation allows impossible situations while grounding them in emotional truth. Gravity Falls uses its medium's full potential rather than treating animation as limitation. Mystery elements function as engagement tool and thematic device. Solving puzzles feels rewarding and creates investment. But mysteries also represent larger questions about truth and knowledge. Characters seek answers about their world, just as viewers seek answers about the show. This parallel makes mystery solving feel meaningful beyond simple puzzle satisfaction. Uncovering secrets becomes metaphor for understanding reality and ourselves. The show's humor works on multiple levels simultaneously. Slapstick entertains younger viewers. Wordplay and references engage older audiences. Character-based comedy develops from established personalities. The humor never stops the story but enhances it. Jokes reveal character, advance plot, or deepen themes. Even throwaway gags often contain foreshadowing or world-building details. This efficient comedy respects viewers' time and intelligence. Gravity Falls handles exposition skillfully by integrating information into action and character moments. Rather than stopping to explain, the show reveals background through journal entries, discovered during adventures, conversations that serve character development, visual details, and environments. Viewers absorb world-building naturally without feeling lectured. This maintains pacing while building rich setting. The series creates genuine stakes by establishing that actions have lasting consequences. Characters get hurt and stay hurt. Decisions made early affect later events. Relationships damaged require real work to repair. This consistency makes dramatic moments land because we believe consequences are real. When characters face danger, we worry because the show has proven it will follow through on threats. Gravity Falls demonstrates efficient storytelling by accomplishing multiple goals simultaneously. A scene might advance plot, develop character, plant mystery clues, deliver humor, and explore theme all at once. This density means no wasted moments. Every scene justifies its existence through multiple functions. Viewers stay engaged because something meaningful constantly happens. The show's visual design supports its themes and tone perfectly. Gravity Falls, the town feels both inviting and unsettling. Bright colors and quirky character designs create accessibility. But shadows, mysterious symbols, and lurking oddities suggest danger. This visual balance mirrors the show's tonal balance between comedy and drama, adventure and horror, whimsy and darkness. Character relationships evolve naturally over time, rather than through sudden revelations. Dipper and Mabel's bond deepens through shared experiences. Stan and Ford's reconciliation requires multiple difficult conversations. Wendy and Dipper's friendship develops as Dipper matures past his crush. These gradual progressions feel realistic and earned. Relationships change because characters change, not because plot demands it. The series uses its format intelligently by building longer arcs while maintaining episodic satisfaction. Individual episodes tell complete stories with beginning, middle, and end, but details accumulate across episodes to form larger narratives. Viewers can enjoy single episodes or track ongoing mysteries. This structure accommodates different viewing styles while rewarding close attention. Gravity Falls proves that respecting your audience creates better art than condescending to them. The show assumes viewers are intelligent, observant, and capable of handling complexity. It includes details that won't be understood on first viewing. It trusts viewers to notice foreshadowing and make connections. It doesn't explain everything explicitly. This respect creates engaged viewership that analyzes and discusses the show deeply. The show's approach to nostalgia is particularly sophisticated. It evokes 1980s and 1990s adventure stories while creating something original. References enhance rather than replace creativity. Nostalgia serves the story instead of being the story. This demonstrates how to honor influences without being derivative. The show understands what made classic stories work and applies those principles to new material. Gravity Falls handles power dynamics and relationships thoughtfully. Dipper and Mabel are equals despite different strengths. Stan holds authority over the kids, but respects their capabilities. Ford's intellectual superiority doesn't make him wiser than Stan about relationships. Bill's power doesn't guarantee victory because power alone can't overcome genuine connection. These dynamics teach that hierarchy isn't destiny and different people contribute different value. The series demonstrates that limitations breed creativity. The show had finite episodes and had to tell its story within that constraint. This forced efficiency and intentionality. Every element serves purpose. Nothing feels padded or wasted. The limitation created better storytelling than unlimited episodes would have allowed. This proves that constraints can enhance rather than hinder artistic work. Gravity Falls shows how to end a story properly. The finale resolves all major questions while maintaining some mystery about the wider world. Character arcs reach satisfying conclusions that feel both earned and appropriate. The emotional climax delivers catharsis. The final scenes provide denouement without dragging. The ending is definitive enough to satisfy, but open enough to let imagination continue. This balance is difficult to achieve and represents masterful storytelling. The show's treatment of childhood captures both its magic and its difficulties. Being young means wonder, imagination, and possibility. But it also means powerlessness, confusion, and being dismissed by adults. Gravity Falls validates both aspects. It doesn't romanticize childhood as perfect, or dismiss it as merely preparation for adulthood. Childhood has intrinsic value while also being a stage that must end. The series proves that genre conventions can be honored while being subverted. It's a mystery show that reveals its mysteries. It's an adventure show where actions have consequences. It's a comedy that takes emotion seriously. It's a kids show that treats kids as intelligent. These subversions don't reject their genres, but fulfill them more completely by avoiding their typical limitations. Gravity Falls demonstrates the importance of thematic consistency. Every major element reinforces core themes about family, growing up, truth, and identity. Side characters and subplots connect to main themes. Visual motifs recur meaningfully. This consistency creates coherent artistic vision, where everything feels intentional and interconnected. The show knows what it's about and ensures all parts serve that purpose. The voice acting elevates the writing significantly. Performers bring nuance that pure dialogue couldn't achieve. Jason Ritter makes Dipper's earnestness endearing rather than annoying. Kristen Schaal gives Mabel manic energy grounded in real emotion. Alex Hirsch voices multiple characters distinctly while maintaining consistent quality. The Castembranere understands their characters deeply and conveys subtleties that enrich every scene. The show's use of music demonstrates how soundtrack enhances storytelling. Brad Breek's score supports emotional beats without overwhelming them. Leitmotifs associate with characters and concepts, creating musical vocabulary. Diegetic music reveals character taste and sets period. The opening theme establishes tone perfectly. Music is integral to the show's identity and effectiveness. Gravity Falls proves that episodic television can achieve novelistic depth. The series tells one complete story across 40 episodes. Early events matter in the finale. Character development accumulates. Mysteries build systematically. This long-form structure allows complexity impossible in films, while maintaining focus that many longer series lack. The format becomes ideal length for the story being told. The show handles representation thoughtfully by including diverse characters without making diversity their only characteristic. Characters have various backgrounds, body types, and identities, but they're defined by personality and role in story first. This approach normalizes diversity while avoiding tokenism. Characters feel like people who happen to be diverse rather than diversity placeholders. Gravity Falls demonstrates that children's entertainment can be artistically ambitious. The show doesn't simplify because kids are watching. It challenges its audience with complex themes, layered storytelling, and emotional depth. This ambition respects children's capacity to engage with sophisticated material. It proves that family entertainment can be excellent entertainment without qualification. The series shows how to build satisfying mysteries by playing fair with the audience. All clues necessary to solve mysteries appear in episodes before revelations. Attentive viewers can theorize correctly based on available information. Solutions feel surprising yet inevitable because groundwork was laid properly. This fairness makes mystery solving rewarding rather than frustrating. The show's approach to continuity balances accessibility and depth. New viewers can start most episodes and follow the story, but longtime viewers notice additional layers through callbacks and developing arcs. This structure welcomes casual viewers while rewarding dedicated fans. Both viewing styles are valid and enjoyable. Gravity Falls proves that sincerity and irony can coexist. The show is genuinely emotional and meaningful, while also being self-aware and humorous about its conventions. It can make jokes about its own tropes while still using those tropes effectively. This balance allows contemporary sophistication without sacrificing emotional authenticity. The show is neither cynically detached nor naively earnest. The series demonstrates effective world building through accumulated detail. Individual pieces seem minor, but collectively create rich setting. Background jokes become plot points. Throwaway characters return significantly. Visual gags contain story information. This density rewards rewatching and close attention. The world feels lived in because details exist beyond immediate plot necessity. The show handles adult characters unusually well for children's media. Stan, Ford, Seuss, and others have full character arcs and complexity. They're not just obstacles or helpers for kid protagonists. They have their own goals, flaws, and growth. This creates richer story and models how to write supporting characters as complete people. Gravity Falls shows that formula and creativity aren't opposed. Each episode follows recognizable structure while feeling fresh. Character types are archetypal, but distinctive. Plot patterns recur, but with variation. The show understands that formula provides framework that allows creativity to flourish rather than constraining it. Structure enables rather than prevents innovation. The series proves that animation for families can address mortality honestly. Characters die and stay dead. Death has emotional impact and consequences. But the show handles this seriously without being traumatizing. It acknowledges death as a real part of life while maintaining appropriate tone. This honesty helps young viewers process difficult concepts in safe context. The show demonstrates how to use symbolism without being heavy-handed. The zodiac wheel, Bill's eye, the portal, the journals, these symbols carry meaning, but also function practically in plot. Symbolism enhances rather than replaces literal storytelling. Viewers can engage with symbolic level or ignore it without losing story comprehension. This layering creates depth without demanding it. Gravity Falls proves that knowing your ending from the beginning creates better storytelling. The show was planned as finite story with specific conclusion. This allowed proper setup and payoff across all episodes. Nothing feels random because everything serves the planned arc. This intentionality creates satisfying viewing experience where trust in storytellers is rewarded. The series shows how to handle romance in all ages content. Dipper's crush on Wendy is treated seriously but age appropriately. Their friendship matters more than romantic resolution. Other relationships model healthy and unhealthy dynamics. Romance exists as part of characters' lives without dominating the story. This balance acknowledges romantic feelings while maintaining focus on other relationship types and story elements. The show demonstrates that weird can be accessible. Gravity Falls is deeply strange with its monsters, mysteries, and tonal shifts, but the strangeness is grounded in relatable characters and emotions. The weird elements serve familiar stories about family and growing up. This combination makes the bizarre feel welcoming rather than alienating. Gravity Falls ultimately teaches that stories matter because of how they make us feel and think. The plot specifics, the mystery solutions, the character details, these matter because they create emotional and intellectual engagement. The show succeeds not through any single element, but through synthesis of excellent writing, performance, animation, music, and vision into coherent whole. Every piece serves the story, and the story serves themes worth exploring. This is what great storytelling looks like regardless of medium or target audience. The show demonstrates that doing something well, with care and intelligence and respect for your audience, creates art that resonates across demographics and endures beyond its initial release. Gravity Falls matters because it understands what makes stories matter and executes that understanding with exceptional skill. The real power of Gravity Falls isn't in what it explains, but in what it makes you realize about your own life. You finish the series, and suddenly you're thinking about your own family differently, about your own childhood, about the things you've been avoiding because they're uncomfortable or painful. That's what separates good entertainment from art that actually changes how you see the world. Alex Hirsch created something that works as adventure comedy for kids, while simultaneously functioning as profound meditation on loss, identity, and what it means to grow up in a universe that doesn't care whether you exist. The show never compromises either level. It never dumbs down the complexity for younger viewers or hides the emotional truth behind irony for older ones. It just tells its story with complete commitment to both entertainment and meaning. What makes Gravity Falls genuinely life-changing isn't that it has all the answers. It's that it asks the right questions and then sits with those questions long enough for them to matter. It demonstrates that you can acknowledge life's meaninglessness while still choosing to care about people and experiences. It shows that intelligence without wisdom leads to isolation, and that genius without emotional growth creates brilliant, miserable people. It proves that vulnerability is strength and that running from discomfort only ensures you'll face it later under worse circumstances. The show teaches these lessons not through lectures or explicit moralizing, but through characters making choices under pressure, through consequences that stick, through relationships that require work to maintain. Stan's sacrifice of his identity demonstrates love more powerfully than any declaration could. Ford's gradual acceptance that he needs others shows growth that feels earned. Dipper and Mabel's decision to stay together despite growing apart models how relationships survive change. Every element of the show serves these deeper purposes while remaining genuinely entertaining. The mysteries engage your analytical mind. The humor provides relief and connection. The emotional beats land because the show earned them through careful character development. The horror elements make the stakes feel real. The absurdity makes difficult themes accessible. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is there just because. Every choice serves the story, and the story serves ideas worth exploring. This is what separates Gravity Falls from most children's entertainment, and honestly from most entertainment period. It respects you enough to challenge you. It trusts that you can handle complexity and ambiguity. It knows that kids aren't stupid, and adults aren't too sophisticated for cartoons. It just makes something excellent, and trusts that excellence will find its audience regardless of demographic categories. The show's influence on animation and storytelling generally will continue for years. It proved that audiences want depth, that serialized narratives work, that mysteries can sustain across seasons, that endings can be planned and satisfying. It demonstrated that taking risks and trusting your vision creates better art than playing it safe. Every show that came after and built on these foundations owes something to what Gravity Falls accomplished. But beyond industry impact, beyond inspiring other creators, beyond the memes and fan theories and cultural footprint, Gravity Falls matters because it helps people process their own lives. It gives language to feelings about family dysfunction and growing up and losing things you love. It models how to face scary truths without becoming cynical. It shows that accepting reality's meaninglessness doesn't require rejecting connection and care. Stan and Ford's reconciliation after 30 years of resentment teaches that it's never too late to repair relationships if both people are willing to be vulnerable. Dipper's gradual acceptance that being smart doesn't make him better than others models intellectual humility. Mabel's journey from denial to acceptance shows that you can't escape growing up, but you can choose how you grow. These aren't abstract lessons. They're practical wisdom delivered through compelling narrative. The show also validates experiences that other media dismisses. It takes childhood seriously without romanticizing it. It acknowledges that being young means both wonder and powerlessness. It treats sibling relationships as complex and important. It shows that family can be damaged and still worth fighting for. These validations matter because they tell viewers their experiences are real and meaningful, even if they're difficult or contradictory. Gravity Falls proves that entertainment can be transformative without being